Welcome to this Grandma's Life podcast. I'm your host, theciaellis. Get ready to laugh, learn, and grow with me as we explore growing old in an ever changing world. One of the things about growing old is people judge you less when you sometimes say outrageous things. I'm getting older and I've had a fascinating life. I've also have opinions. You may not agree with those opinions and I may not care. Even now, I am passionate about many things. I love to learn. I love quotes. I love my animals on the farm and I care about my country. Join me as we explore loving life even as we age. Today is March 3rd, 2025. This is episode 76. And this is a part of the Are You Ready for the Next Great Depression series? And so this one is called Homesteading Combined with Prepping. And so we're going to discuss the combining homesteading with prepping to prepare for the next Great Depression. But first, I want to say what's going on around the house. I have been spared, thank God. But poor little Ivy, she's been sick for over a week now, and she was diagnosed with type A flu. And Tony, my son, has been struggling with it, and Kayla a little bit too. Ivy got it pretty bad though. It's been she came home from school last Monday, and it's Monday now, and she still hasn't gone back to school. She's 3. She goes to pre-K Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But still, still that's a long time for a little one to be sick. I'm still listening to Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, and I'm also listening to Heretics of Doom by Frank Herbert. What I'm still reading Spud, Spam, and Eating for Victory, Rationing in the Second World War by Catherine Knight. This is a book that I'm probably going to be doing a lot of, we'll definitely go on the other podcast. The book's highlighted somewhere down the road when I do get it finished, and I'm learning a lot from it now. These guys are, this is World War II era in Europe, and she talks about what they learned in World War I to help them get through with the food rationing and stuff in World War II, and some of the things they had to eat and do and to survive and stuff in Europe in World War II. I'm also reading Muscular Retraining for Pain-Free Living by Craig Williamson, and I'm still on Poland by James Michener. My quote of the week, and it's probably going to be this one for all of the rest of the Are You Ready for the Next Great Depression series. By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail, by Benjamin Franklin. And I may change it, may not. We'll have to see. So my main subject tonight is homesteading combined with prepping. So I want to preface this first by saying episode 48 of this Grandma's Life podcast was an introduction to the series. Episode 50 was How Much Do You Really Eat? Episode 56 is the prepping portion of it. Episode 72 was homesteading, and those are all part of the series of Are You Ready for the Next Great Depression? So now I want to talk to you about combining homesteading and prepping, which I feel is the best way to handle any sort of long-term not grid down, but where there's very little food and money and stuff going around. So the homesteading and prepping, if you think about it, even the homesteaders or people of the 1800s and stuff, they had their time where they were doing gardening and other things in the summertime, and then of course they did things in the wintertime too. But they did a lot of things in the spring and summer and fall to prepare to get them through the best of their ability in the winter. So it is a combination of homesteading and prepping. So if you think about it, the old prepping ways was gardening. Okay, so you don't have to do it like the old preppers way, because there's a lot of techniques out there. They're pretty cool. You got raised beds you can build, especially in an area where if the ground is not that good, if it's very sandy, and I don't know, a lot of soil when you first get into it to make a garden, it needs to be amended anyway. But some soils are just too difficult, if it's too clay, if it's too sand, if it's whatever, So raised bed gardening is a good one for that, and especially as you get older, whatever, you don't have to bend over so far. There's container gardening if you have on a terrace of your back porch or whatever, front porch, whatever. Hydroponics and aquaponics. Those are two different other things that are completely, those are not old style, but but it is a form of gardening. And of course you have the traditional garden. I know my grandpa Dayhoff, I think his garden was like a full acre, and he was a good gardener. But he was always out there working from the time he got home from work to the time it got dark. And I don't know how he went through the winters and stuff, but I know he had a huge garden and he always had food, and that was just how he did things. But he had a regular job and stuff too. Square foot gardening, that's a pretty cool way of doing it. There's just a lot of gardening techniques that you can use. I would highly recommend checking into them. So, and the reason I tell you that, like I said, Grandpa had a huge garden, but even if you can only do a little bit of gardening, and okay, let me rephrase that, because people go, oh, just get started. If you just have a basil plant, let's be realistic. If you are having to rely on that basil plant to get you through the next Great Depression, you're in trouble. And so therefore, if you live in an apartment and you can't grow a bunch of stuff, then you're in trouble. Now, they do have some techniques where you can do some gardening, like the hydroponics and stuff, where I believe it's that technique, that you can do a form of it in your house, and then you can do that year round, and that's good. That is much better. But I feel like when people say, oh, you just need to get a little bit started, and just a little bit, one tomato plant. Honey, when you're hungry, that tomato plant ain't going to do much for you. And that one basil plant ain't going to do too much for you. That might get you one meal of bruschetta, So I don't know. And I say that because I know that people are wanting to encourage you to get into gardening, and that's a good start, whatever you need to do to get started. But if you are serious about trying to get ready for the next Great Depression, you need to be learning all the things that you eat, what you want to have in your pantry, and what you want to grow to get you through the next Great Depression, if nothing else, but through the winter. Okay. So, let's be realistic about that. And like I said, there are a lot of techniques for gardening, and you can experiment, learn. Some people do 2 or 3 methods, like if they have the raised bed gardening, and then they want to try out, like there's the hay bales. A lot of people like to do the hay bale gardening. Just learn about the different things, learn about permaculture, learn about all the other stuff, and figure out what is best for you, because your goal is to feed yourself. Okay. So back to the old prepper ways, hunting and fishing. You need to know you need to know the laws in your area, what you can hunt for and fish for. And especially in the hunting, you need to know what's in season and what's not in season. Well, the fishing too. But one way or another, you need to, if you want to be able to survive and get through whatever, get some meat, you will want to know the laws. Because if it gets to be a really bad situation, I'm sure there's not going to be law enforcement out there saying, hey, you shot that deer in the middle of June. That's not a good thing, But, and I've said this before, when I used to listen to Jack Spirko before he started using the F word all the time. And, but he had a story of his grandpa talking about how he had rat traps with a hole in them, which the hole was where he screwed the rat trap to the tree. And that was how he caught squirrel, because he didn't have ammunition. So he would put bait in the rat trap, and the squirrel would go for the bait, and then he would get snapped in the rat trap, and then they would have dinner. And he said that worked real good for about 2 years until there were no squirrels in the area. So I tell you that to kind of give you a perspective on not only just for hunting, but various ways of getting the meat that you want, and how, if it gets to be kind of a dire situation, you may still struggle to get some meat on the table. So the more you prepare now, the better off you'll be. The better you are at hunting, the better you are at fishing, and cleaning the fish, and processing the meat, and getting things together like that, the better your chances are of having food when you need it for yourself and for your family. So another way, now we're still into the old ways of homesteading, raising your own meat. Now, there are 2, like just on chickens, and there's going to be a future podcast too. the chicken that we buy in the grocery store is what is called a Cornish cross. They are a highly hybrided bird that is designed to get up to weight and very fat and very with a lot of meat on it in 8 weeks of life. And if you don't kill it within that 8 weeks of life, they're likely to die of heart attack or get so heavy they break their legs and stuff. And that's the kind of meat that we're used to eating from the grocery store and stuff too. And a lot of us have bought them from hatcheries and butchered them after the 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, or whatever it is that they choose that they can do. But if you're talking about a long-term situation, some people are going back to some of the more traditional chickens. Now, there are heavy-bodied chickens. They won't be like the Cornish cross, the big fat ones, but there are breeds of birds that are called heavy-bodied that have more meat on them and or less bony and less stringy, whatever, because some, I don't know if you've ever tried to do anything with a rooster, but there's a reason they tell you that some of these roosters are just tough and you can cook them for a long time and they're still tough. But you can breed chickens. There are like the American breast is a form of bird that has a little bit more dark meat on it, and which a lot of us actually really prefer. And that can be raised at the homestead level. The Cornish cross cannot be raised at the homestead level. Something about how they are bred and how they are to get that cross. It takes I think they said 1,000 birds to get the right Cornish cross traits that you want. So the chances of you as a homesteader having a Cornish cross farm, I guess, is pretty slim. So you can find heavy-bodied chickens to have for that. And then when you do that, you can hatch them at home instead of getting them from a hatchery. And if you think about it, people ate goat for a long time. If you want to eat goat, you can eat sheep, rabbits. I was on a place where it had lots and lots of rabbits, and you can hunt rabbits, but you can also raise your own rabbits where you can have the larger breed with more meat on them, kind of like the Cornish cross chicken. And then, of course, you could, if you have cattle, you can do beef too. And knowing how to process the chickens, the goats, the sheep, the rabbits, the beef, etc., are a good way in preparing for the next Great Depression and making sure that you have enough food for your family on that. Now, I've said this before too, preserving the harvest. We will cover that in a future episode also, but I want to cover some of the ways of preserving a harvest, especially when it comes to, well, I was going to say for gardening, but you can do this with meat too. There's good meat that's been canned, but canning, there's water bath canning, and that's stuff that has high acidity to it, like pickles and things like that. And then there's pressure canning, and you will need to know the difference on which ones will need pressure canning and which ones are only do water bathing. Because if you try to water bath your chicken or even green beans, I believe, have to be pressure canned. So you need to know, because you can get botulism. You can just get terribly, terribly sick by canning improperly and not canning at the proper times and stuff. So you want to also have a good canning book and not necessarily rely on what you see on the internet for canning times and pressure times and stuff like that. So preserving a harvest canning, like I said, is either water bath or pressure canning. Freezing your food. I mean, if you are going to go into a situation where there's not electricity at some point, okay, that could be an issue. But as long as you got electricity, put it in the freezer. And also on something like that, when you're freezing, some people, when they lose electricity for extended period of time because of a tornado or something like that, as their meat thaws, they go ahead and can it up, and it makes it shelf stable. And so they can do that. Dehydrating, that's a age-old way of taking care of food. In fact, whenever I was a kid, I was raised in Southwest Oklahoma, and I believe it was in August, they have a great big powwow with, I believe it's the Caddo Indians. And if you drive down where they're having their big powwow, there are strips of beef that are little strips hanging off of the barbed wire fence so that they can have it for their jerky, which I thought was kind of bad anyway, because it's a very dusty and dirty red dirt. It blows all the time, and then people are driving their cars by on the road. That had been some really gritty beef jerky. But that was part of their tradition. That was part of what they did. And when they're having a powwow, they are trying to have as much of the old ways as possible. And that's one of the things that they do. But you can dehydrate your vegetables. You can dehydrate your meat. And and then you have pickling, like I was talking about, that has the acid in it and the different spices like dill or whatever you want to do for that. And salting your meats is a good way for preserving things. I had heard somewhere, like I think up like where people have apples and things like that, they actually save their sawdust and they bury their apples in the sawdust and try to make it where the apples are not touching each other. So then as you go through the winter and into the spring, because if you think about it, apples usually don't come about until fall. If you get into the sawdust, you can pull out very likely a good fresh piece of fruit like an apple or something, and you've preserved it for that long too. Brining is a good way for preserving your food, and smoking. The new category is freeze drying. I would love to have a freeze dryer, but that is definitely not something that was old school. That's something that's new. So that this is a way of doing the homesteading part and preserving your food and things. So like I said, all of these, I'm going to take them category by category and cover them in future episodes. It just might be a while until I get to them. New prepper ways. Okay, so you can actually buy all your own freeze-dried food already pre-done. I would recommend, though, if you do the prepping, that way for prepping is to experiment with the food that you save. The freeze-dried food, yeah, it's good for 25 years, but if it's sitting for 25 years and then all of a sudden you need it, or even if it's been sitting for 10 years and you don't know how to cook with it, or you don't even know if you like it, that's a problem for you. So, get your prepackaged freeze-dried food if that's what you want, but experiment with it, taste it, see what you like, see what you needed to have to go with it to make it more edible for yourselves or whatever. And of course, the new prepper ways has always still got the hunting and the camping, but you can have all the knives, you can have all the bug out bags, you can have the generators, the inverters, you can have the medical and supplies and all the different medicines that you need. Of course, obviously, you got ammunition. So basically, you got the beans, bullets, and Band-Aids and stuff like that. So that is a good way for prepping, because old timers didn't necessarily have all the extra bandages and stuff. In fact, they probably did more herb things. So that's a good thing to get into somewhere down the road too. But for this day and age, having your blood pressure, a backup of blood pressure medicine and other things that you feel like you might need, have extras of it. It might not get you through the next Great Depression, but it will get you at least a couple of months down the road and help you to be able to do that. And my point of view is do your very best to get off that kind of medication as it is. Now I'm want to talk. I'm on high blood pressure medicine, but keeping your blood sugar under control by eating healthy and doing stuff. Unless you're type 1, there's nothing to do about that. But type 2, guys, you can take care of that. How to keep from having that and getting worse. And so to me, that's one of the better ways of prepping is to not be on as much medications as all possible, but you still want to have your medications and bandages and stuff like that too. So combining old practices with the more modern technology today makes for a much more well-rounded strategy in preparing for the next Great Depression, I feel. So I understand. Not everybody's going to be on a homestead. Not everybody's going to be even on an acre of land. There's a lot of things that you would not be able to do. But I still encourage you to do your best to think about what you can do. They're always telling you, quit telling me what you can't do. Show me what you can do. And because this is the whole point of preparing for the next Great Depression. And it may never come. And that would be wonderful. But even if it doesn't come, all these things that you have and are doing are things that you can do in regular life, in real life, and make it a part of your daily routine and stuff so that if it happens, you are better prepared, because a case in point, you're always seeing where the people have those, what they call vault seeds. You got all these extra seeds that you have. but nobody's ever planted them. And if you are in a situation where you have to have seeds, you're going to get real hungry before those seeds are going to be planted and raised and made into a meal. And it might be something that's not good in your climate. It may not be something that's good in your part of the world. And you may not know how to grow that yet. Gardening is kind of like being a doctor. You got to keep practicing at it. So try to implement these things and combine homesteading as much as possible, along with prepping and all the technology and stuff. As long as it's there, know how to do the old ways, know how to do the new ways, know how to use the GPS, know how to use a map, know how to garden, know how to put the food up, know how to can, and if you can, if you can afford it, know how to freeze dry. So that's a wonderful combination, I think. But put the mental energy into it. Think about what works best for you, your situation, and your family, and do what you can. Because if we do go into another Great Depression thing, I don't know that we're going to be able to. I mean, even when the government was able to help people for the last Great Depression, there was still an awful lot of people that got hungry. There was an awful lot of people that were struggling to survive and did out without a lot of stuff. So take it back on the old ways, embrace the new ways, and combine them. And like I said, I feel like that's the best combination of stuff that you can do. So my question of the day is, what are some ways that you could prepare for the possibility of the next Great Depression? Give me an email at theciaellis@gmail.com. And I pray that some of this information is helping you. And we're going to cover more in the future as we go. I'm using Streamyard to do this podcast. There is so much more, and I really need to kind of get into it. I was doing a podcast the other day and was telling me that my I think they were calling it snippets or something were prepared, and I didn't get in there to see what else I could do with it. But there's a lot of other things that you can do with StreamYard. I like doing the podcast. I like doing the things to talk to you and help get you ready for different things. I don't know. I'm enjoying doing a podcast one way or another. So if you have something that you're interested in, something that you are passionate about, or just want to make a podcast to make something for your grandkids to hear sometime well after you're dead or something, whatever. StreamYard is a good platform to do that on, and it's easy enough that I was able to figure it out to do this, and that's good because I'm not getting any younger. But if you will want to do StreamYard and do something along that line, go to the link below and click on it. It doesn't cost you anymore, but it does help me. I pray that this information is helpful. I pray also that you give me a 5-star review so other people can find me and get this information. Also, tell others about this series that I'm doing. Are you ready for the next Great Depression? And then keep an eye out for future episodes. I will be continuing to do my regular episodes in between time as I'm researching things and doing it. But I would appreciate if you would let other people know about this series and give me a 5-star review. I do a TikTok almost every day where I do a scripture that I like and a quote of the day. And I put that on TikTok, and I am on also, I have Grandma's Homestead.farm. That's my website. Grandma's Homestead YouTube channel. That's my main YouTube channel. Farm Animal Life YouTube channel. Kinsey Likey Sports YouTube channel. That's stuff I put where my granddaughter's sports stuff, softball and everything. I'm on Instagram where I do also the quotes and the scripture. I have my regular Facebook page is Thecia V. Dayhoff-Ellis. That's a mouthful, I know. I'm also on X and Rumble under Thecia E. And then I also have a Grandma's Homestead Facebook page. All right, guys. You know that how my feelings about preparing for the next Great Depression, but at the same time, I want to encourage you to live until you die. This is the only life we've got. And I want you to start thinking about how you can be the best that you can be, to do the best you can do, to have the life that you want to have for yourself and for your family, and live. God bless, guys. I'll see you next time.